please do. And I wanted to do this chat. It's been sitting in my my inbox for the longest time to do since the beginning of COVID. And it's kind of un-COVID related, to be honest, which I think is welcoming at this point because we're all COVIDed and zoomed out. So, you know, I do this talk a lot for Wallace McCain Institute, St. Mary's, and a number of EO and a number of different organizations. And it seems to resonate. I think a lot of people understand the importance of marketing and branding, but they don't really understand how to wrap their arms around it. So as a result, everyone kind of does what everyone, you know, each person in a competitive set does, and maybe a tiny bit differently, but they're really not breaking any molds. So I've, for those that don't know me, I founded a company called Extreme Group almost 25 years ago, which kind of gives me the chills to say those two things together. It's been a long time. We've rebranded to Arrivals and Departures, and been doing marketing kind of my whole career. And I stepped away in 2012 and got involved in a number of other different businesses. But marketing is truly, not just from an agency person's perspective, but from a business owner's perspective, one of the most powerful things that you can do to differentiate yourself and create a real competitive advantage. It's just a lot of people don't understand how to embrace it. Or if they do think about it, they think about it from the standpoint of, oh, we got to do marketing, so let's check the box and move on, versus how do you do things that are truly differentiated. So I put together a deck. I'm just going to share the screen. The only thing I don't know about, there's a couple videos in here, so I'm going to try to run the videos in the midst of it, and hopefully they will they'll come across not choppy. But let's give that a try and see. The first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen here with the deck, and let's get this rolling. Everyone see that okay? Hopefully. I'm just going to diminish it. I'm going to keep it this way. That way I can see everybody, if that's okay. Can everyone see the screen okay? Is it full screen? Thumbs up if yes? Yeah, okay, cool. All right. So inside the chat box, just do me a favor and, you know, write down for me, what is a brand? You know, just off the top of your head, when you think about a brand, what comes to mind? Just throw it in the chat. Let's see here. I got to find this little chat feature up here. Chat. Okay. Okay, it's your identity. Yeah, it's your image, the personality of your company. Yeah. It's your reputation. Lifestyle, that's interesting. Lifestyle of a company. The brand isn't what you say about yourself, it's what everyone says about you. That's a really interesting insight. I agree with that. A lot of people think that they're in control of their brand. They're not. You can only direct it. It's your flag, it's your representation. It answers the who you are, your corporate values, the feelings that your identity wants to evoke. It's the value beyond the quality of your product and the face of your business. You guys don't need me. You guys, I think you got it all. So that's a good presentation. I want to thank everyone for coming. I'm just kidding. So now just take 1 second, if you will, and think about, I mean, obviously you guys are here representing a company. Just take 1 minute and write down what you think your brand is. Just write down, and this should be really quick. And by the way, if you don't have an answer, that's fine too. But just think about it really quickly. What's your brand? Okay, we're going to come back to that at the end of this, but it's just interesting. Either one of two things just happened right now, one of three things. One, you have no answer, which is fine. Two, you had to think about an answer, and I would argue that if you had to think about it, your employees have to think about it harder. Or three, you feel convicted that you really have a good answer. Anyone on the line have a good answer? You don't have to tell me what it is, but is anyone really excited about the brand that they have? Inspiring women, I see here Megan wrote down, so you're happy with that? And anyone else have a brand that they're happy about, that they feel like they've really kind of nailed? I'm assuming you wouldn't be on the call if you felt like you nailed it, but no? Okay, that's fine. So I want to talk to you. I had an epiphany years ago when I first put this together, this kind of outline. And it was in the shower where all of great epiphanies come from. I was thinking about my life, dealing with marketing oriented companies for the past 20 plus years. And even as a consumer, if I were to think about brands, I would say that they fall into one or two camps. Either they are a mask and I can't really identify with it, or I see what they're saying, but it doesn't connect. It was funny. I was watching a commercial on TV last night with my wife, and or watching the news, and there's this constant gold commercial. Like, we wouldn't be here if you guys know what I'm talking about. You see that on constantly. And I said to April, I'm like, I've seen that commercial like 1,000 times. She said, who's it for? And I'm like, I have no idea. And we had to wait till the end of the commercial. I mean, how many times has that happened to you before where you're either inspired by a message or bored by one and you can't remember who it's from? That happens a lot, and that would fall into the camp of masks. But sometimes brands touch you in a very emotional way, and they connect with you in your soul. And for me, those are the brands that really understand their DNA and therefore yours. So those would be the two camps. And I want to kind of emphasize both, because I think it's important for us to understand the differences. Brand masks, for me, are predominantly marketing led. So I've seen this happen 1,000 times before, where the initiative has been asked to be taken by marketing and say, hey, we need to get to the bottom of our brand. Can the advertising group come up with our branding? And they lock themselves in a room and they come up with it. And generally, the marketing department is leading that versus key stakeholders who really should be tasked to understand the underpinnings of a brand. Therefore, the result is not genuine. It's fairly forgettable in the market. It's largely irrelevant. It's fleeting. And most importantly, it doesn't influence your culture. So I'll tell you a quick story. One of the companies that I bought a couple of years ago was called Charlottetown Metal Products. And my CFO, Stacy, came in one morning and he said, my son just got a job at Staples. And they just had a group meeting, and they basically told everybody that their new branding direction is that red means go. And, the son went to Stacy and was like, well, I don't understand what that means. We all kind of left, scratching our heads. What do you think it means? He said, I don't know, but the guy I work with owned an ad agency. I'm going to ask him. So he came to me and asked me, and he's like, what do you think? I'm like, I have no fucking idea what that means. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. And as a result, I think that's a swing and a miss, because clearly they would have spent a lot of money and a lot of time trying to move the company into that direction. And unfortunately, it did not connect with the culture. And that's one of the biggest opportunities that companies have, is building a brand that staff and employees and customers can get excited about. So that's what a brand mask is. So I wanted to choose an example of an industry. Are there any lawyers on the call here by any chance? Anyone come from the law background? Yeah, I know, Alicia, you did. Okay, so this will resonate. Look, Alicia aside, most people struggle with saying great things about the law industry, right? The legal industry. Yet, to be honest, when you need their services, usually shit's going down. Something is happening in my life that I really need, and sometimes it's opportunity driven. A lot of times it's a threat. I'm getting sued, or I'm getting a divorce, or whatever. I mean, it's a pretty momentous occasion, when it comes down to calling on a lawyer. That being said, you would think that the legal industry would be really good at being able to showcase their identity against the needs that their customers would have during a time of peril or opportunity. So I spent a bit of time, and I didn't set this up, by the way. You can do it yourself if you jumped on and just typed in legal marketing. You'll get the same examples that I found, but I just wanted to showcase a few examples of, and they're not local, so that's good, and I won't tick anybody off, but this one came out of New York and New Jersey. We provide legal help since 1987 in New York and New Jersey. So as a customer, I mean, that's a real big who gives a shit. So what, you've been practicing since 1987. How does that showcase an insight into what I'm going through right now? So that's that for me was any company that hangs their hat on, we've been around since for 50 years or whatever. To a consumer, it's what have you done for me lately, and that's very, very fleeting. We'll come back to that. This one was good. When it's time for divorce, and you can really tell that these two people are just ready for a divorce. They're nice, clean, crisp sheets, and they just can't stand each other. They're helping spouses make intelligent legal decisions during a time of emotional distress. Call Ben and Howard today. And I think those guys are off Jersey Shore, if I'm not mistaken. So, a couple over tan dudes that are there to represent your needs when it comes down to a divorce. So I don't know. That's that felt like a big miss for me, because a divorce is a very, very big moment in someone's life, and that seemed to be serious. Hopefully you can read this one. I'm not sure how big the screen is. Okay, trust me, I'm a lawyer. My dogs do. Robert Tito Mayer. Tito. Holy shit. Okay, so anyway, this guy's there with his dogs, and I guess I should probably call him, because his dogs trust him. This one was interesting. Injured, don't pull your hair out. Call my bald lawyer. So I'm not quite sure what the lack of follicles has to do with anything, but anyway, I'm not sure why that guy's hanging his hat on that, but that's an interesting, that's a very interesting insight. How about this one? Need a lawyer, hire a Dick law firm in Houston. All right. So okay. So I mean, my point is, and if you think about even legal marketing around here, usually it's extremely extremely cold is the best word I would use for it. And I think there's a great opportunity for that industry. Some industries are easier to brand than others. I remember one time we worked with P&G on Mr. Clean, and it was Mr. Clean was celebrating his 50th birthday in Canada. That's a really hard thing to get people excited about. So it's a tough challenge to connect with with a commodity product like that. But in this industry, I would think that these guys could do much better. All right, so that's kind of the brand mask. Brand DNA is quite a bit different, and it affects you very differently. So your brand DNA marketing is marketing supported, not marketing led. So the marketing department has gotten behind the initiative, has got the right thought leadership, the right stakeholder group engaged, and they're meant to find the true essence of the company using a number of different inputs to craft and tailor the voice of the business. And in doing so, understanding what your brand stands for creates this limitless opportunity. It doesn't get boring. It doesn't get old. There's constant ways to iterate on the brand premise and continually pounding that stake into the ground and owning that territory, versus getting bored and a new marketing person comes in and changes everything because they have a new cool way of interpreting the brand. The other outcome is that it creates this kind of a genuine, authentic feeling that a consumer would get, because they're really connecting with something on a greater and a deeper level. This also has a major influence on the culture, and hold that thought for an example I'm going to showcase you here in a second. And the other two things that comes out of this that I don't think any of you on the call were here hunting for, but I've seen this happen inside companies. When you uncover your why, and you're that convicted about it, it actually guides your corporate strategy. It actually makes your company, it's not just a marketing vein, it's actually the thing that drives the company forward down a path that continues to become like a self-fulfilling prophecy corporately and from a marketing perspective. But it also unlocks new opportunities. I remember at one point, and I'm not going to use this as an example, but at CMP, when we bought that, Charlottetown Metal Products, we built major infrastructure for food plants. So all the stainless steel conveyors and all that stuff, we did all that. And that was a difficult marketing challenge. But in the end, what we uncovered was that we had to become hygienic design specialists, so that we didn't want people getting sick off the equipment that we were processing food from. And we came up with a line, we keep food safe. And in doing that, we created a hygienic design division that would actually go into plants and create audits, like how hygienic is the equipment and is your processes, which created a whole new revenue stream for the business. And I guess this is less about a mask of a company and more about the ability to uncover something that can actually drive your corporate strategy and create new opportunities for you. So I chose a different example for this one. I really tried to think about the opposite of an easy win, finding a DNA oriented example where soap is a commodity of the highest order. And soap marketing is extremely difficult. There's 1,000 different, soap companies that are out there. It cleans your skin, and that's pretty much it. So how do you differentiate a soap brand that's kind of the top of the food chain and commodity? But one company figured it out, and that was Unilever. Does anyone remember this project? It was called the Dove Self-Esteem Project in its beginnings. It was kind of neat. This is the, I'm going to showcase for you this now, and hopefully this video is going to run. I'm just going to go full screen with it. Just watch this. This was the first campaign that they had created. Did that video run okay for everyone? I'm just looking for a thumbs up. Yeah. Okay. Good. So, you see that, you're like, wow, that was for soap. That was a really interesting, a really interesting insight that they connected to make the movement of their brand much bigger than the commodity that it represented. It was the Dove. It was all about creating self-worth and self-esteem for women and calling out the bullshit around the industry and how fake it all is. Now, ironically, this is the same company that owns Axe body spray for men. And if you've ever seen the body spray commercials where there's a guy who's a chocolate guy and women are walking by breaking pieces of the man off and just eating the chocolate, I mean, I find that's kind of hypocritical. That nonetheless, I'll still do think that that if you work for that division, you're pretty proud to work at that division. And I think you can align interest of people who go to work for that company, who go to work for that division, who get up every day and whose job it is to create incredible moments for that category. I think there's a really interesting thought process to be had there. So I'm going to show you another video. This is a little bit more contemporary. So the last one I showed you was quite old, but this one is this latest one is much newer. So hang on, I see somebody. Oh, there we go. I'm gonna mute. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna find my mouse again. Let's play this one.
I'm a forensic artist. Worked for the San Jose Police Department from 1995 to 2011.
I showed up to a place I'd never been, and there was a guy with a drafting board.
We couldn't see them, they couldn't see us.
Tell me about your hair.
I didn't know what he was doing, but then I could tell after several questions that he was drawing me.
Tell me about your chin.
It kind of protrudes a little bit, especially when I smile.
Your jaw.
My mom told me I had a big jaw.
What would be your most prominent feature?
Kind of have a fat, rounder face.
The older I've gotten, the more freckles I've gotten.
I would say I have a pretty big forehead.
Once I get a sketch, I say thank you very much, and then they leave. I don't see them.
All I had been told before the sketch was to get friendly with this other woman, Chloe.
Today I'm going to ask you some questions about a person you met earlier, and I'm going to ask you some general questions about their face.
She was thin, so you could see her cheekbones. And her chin, it was a nice, thin chin.
She had nice eyes. They lit up when she spoke.
Cute nose.
She had blue eyes, very nice blue eyes.
So here, this is the sketch that you helped me create, and that's a sketch that somebody described of you.
So yeah, let's...
She looks closed off and fatter, sadder too. The second one looks more open, friendly, and happy.
I should be more grateful of my natural beauty. It impacts the choices and the friends that we make, the jobs we apply for, how we treat our children. It impacts everything. It couldn't be more critical to your happiness.
Do you think you're more beautiful than you say?
Yeah. Yeah.
We spend a lot of time as women analyzing and trying to fix the things that aren't quite right. And we should spend more time appreciating the things that we do like.
Just seeing if anyone's got any Kleenex up to their face. No, you guys are tough. Okay, no tears flowing. Did that video play okay? It was a little longer. Yeah? Okay. I think you understand what I'm getting at. I mean, every brand has an opportunity to create an essence and connect with people. But it's a difficult practice. It's a difficult thing to do. And it rewards only the companies that I think have the desire and the ability to dig deep, because it's as you come to find out when we talk about the exercise in terms of how to do this, this is not for the faint of heart, and most people fail, and we'll talk about why that is. But first, let's talk about how different is your difference. I talk a lot and over my career about any firm. Are you any firm? Does your marketing, could you just pull, the logo off your latest marketing campaign or your website and have a competitor stick theirs on top of it, and could they own it? And I would argue that Dove, it would be extremely difficult for any other soap competitor to own that space, the campaign for real beauty. They now own that forevermore, and a lot of companies don't differentiate themselves to that degree. So are you any firm? Let's talk about that. Any firm is exactly the firm you've been looking for. Any firm offers extensive and diverse expertise in all areas, yet with a personalized approach tailored to your individual needs. Any firm has a proud history and people who are committed to excellence. Any firm will work hard to earn your trust and help you reach your goals, because any firm knows that integrity matters, and relationships and results. Staying current and connected is important. That's why any firm provides insights that are relevant to our clients. So if you're looking for a team who is collaborative, efficient, and connected to strategic improvement, you'll find it here at any firm. Anyone guilty at this point? Any firm lacks the ability to stand out. It has no clear sense of differentiation. It will suffer from inconsistent marketing messages, and it will struggle with decision making, and ultimately it will miss a sea of opportunities. I'm going to show you another quick video to just put a finer point on it here.
We think first of vague words that are synonyms for progress and pair them with footage of a high-speed train. Science is doing lots of stuff that may or may not have anything to do with us. See how this guy in a lab coat holds up a beaker? That means we do research. Here's a picture of DNA. There are a shitload of people in the world, especially in India. See how we're part of the global economy? Look at those farmers in China. But we also do business in the USA, or want you to think we do. Check out this wind energy thing in Indiana, and this blue-collar guy with dirt on his face. Also, we care about the environment loosely. Here's some powerful rushing water and people planting trees. Our policies could be related to these panoramic views of Costa Rica. In today's high-speed environment, stop-motion footage of a city at night with cars turning quickly makes you think about doing things efficiently and time passing. Lest you think we're a faceless entity, look at all these attractive people. Here's some of them talking and laughing, and close-ups of hands passing canned goods to each other in a setting that evokes community service. Equality, innovation, honesty, and advancement are all words we choose from a list. Our profits are awe-inspiring, like this guy who's looking up and pointing at a skyscraper or a kite while smiling and explaining something to his child. Using a specific ratio of Asian people to black people to women to white men, we want to make sure we represent your needs and interests, or at least a version of your skin color in our ads. Did we put a baby in here? What about an ethnic old man whose wrinkled smile represents the happiness and wisdom of the poor? Yep.
Has anybody seen an ad like that before, or a brand represent themselves like that before? I dare say that it's unfortunately more the norm than it is different. I guess the moral of the story here is don't be any firm. And when you think about your brand message, it's really important to think that the world is changing. So if I think about the automobile industry back in the early days of the Model T, when that had come out, Ford had a marketing message, which was, we have a car and it has an engine. So we have a product that's available, and that was the leading edge marketing message of the time. It's not a horse and carriage, and it's an innovation. And then the Dodge brothers came on the scene, and then multiple companies had cars, and it wasn't enough to say then that became a table stake that we have availability. So then they went to different options, different types of cars, different styles. And that became, until everyone had different styles, and then it became a features war, power windows from crank windows, and different warranty programs. And you remember the era of value, where everyone talked about value was critical. We offer you the best, value for dollar. And then consumers are like, yeah, if I'm paying you money, I expect that you're going to give me great value. And then they went into service, and then service became the greatest thing. And then service came and went. And through each of the evolutions, consumers have come to take for granted the things that used to be big things and that would differentiate your brand. Things like, we work hard. Earlier I'd mentioned this. We've been in business for 50 years. We are dependable. We offer the best value. Working safe is job one. We have great people. We have great selection. Those are all things that consumers expect from companies if you're going to have them part with their money. So has anyone on the call seen the video from Simon Sinek? It's a TED video. It's 20 minutes long. It's called Start With Why. Anyone not seen it before? Any hands up that has not seen it before? If you've seen it before, watch it again. If you haven't seen it, after this, jump on that. It's in all my years in marketing, it's the smartest, most thoughtful explanation of the reason for marketing, period. And his whole concept, which I would have dearly loved to have come up with myself, but he did it, so I'll showcase it. And by the way, he's got a book called Start With Why, which is also extremely good. Most companies that you see talk about what they do, right? What is your products and services? And if you're curious to know right now how you're presenting yourself, like where you believe that, sorry, I gotta mute Mike over here. Mike's coughing up a storm. Mike, can you mute yourself? I can't somehow. I can't mute you for some reason. Anyway, if you go to your website and just take a look at the front of your website, that'll tell you what you're promoting. Because if you're telling people what you do, we're a law firm. We make blueberry products. We I was looking past some of the companies that are on here. If you tell people what you do, then that's the lowest of all of the most powerful tiers that you can approach. How is a little different. So I've got a proprietary approach to business. We're doing things very differently than other people are doing them. That I think is a really critical differentiator between what you do is talking about how you do it. That's your value proposition. But very, very, very few companies, and I would say less than 3% of companies talk about their why. And your why is your cause. And ironically, most companies or most entrepreneurs who are on this call that started a company knew their why from the beginning. But over time, and as business grew, and as complexity started, and as the world changed, you forget about your why, and then it becomes all about value propositions. And then a lot of companies degrade themselves down to a what, and they forgot their purpose. And understanding your why and defending your why, I think, is one of the biggest roles of a CEO or an entrepreneur in the world. As Simon says in his rant, people don't buy what you do; they buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do; they buy why you do it. And I completely agree with that. So I want to take you through a couple of examples of companies that have brand purpose, and I want to be clear. This is not about developing a slogan. A lot of times, if you uncover your why, it's the statement won't make it market facing, but you will present that in everything that you do. You'll be it, not say it. And that's far more powerful. And a lot of the examples I'm about to show you don't actually market themselves. It's not a slogan I'm reading. This is what they stand for, which I think is much more powerful. So, like Walmart or hate Walmart, the truth I think that everyone can agree with is that they're all about saving you money. And when, in the genesis of Walmart, their founders had a belief that if we can save people money, then the people can live better. So whether that's true today or not, that's their motto. That's what they believe in. That's why they get their prices down. I think the only people that they don't make life better for is suppliers that sell to them, because they get ground down pretty hard. And then Airbnb. So has anybody here, and maybe it's a bad time to ask this, but has anyone not used Airbnb before? So pretty much everyone's used Airbnb before, right? We've all used Airbnb. Airbnb, which I found quite profound. I'm just sending a quick note to one of our participants here. The Airbnb experience is different. If you go to a hotel in anywhere in the world, you feel like a visitor. You feel like you talk to the concierge. You got to figure out where the restaurants are. You move in, you probably don't even unpack. You live out of your suitcase for a couple of days. You go down the stark corridors. You see the faceless, nameless others around you who are all visitors too. And it just doesn't feel like you are a part of that ecosystem, right? So Airbnb makes it feel, you feel different. So we were in Ireland last year in June, and we were staying at an Airbnb, and it was in a nice little courtyard. And our daughter went out and she was playing with some of the kids that were out there. And then, of course, my daughter told them that we're from Canada, not the US, which I thought, maybe gave us some more points. And then one of the ladies came over and brought us over a pie, right? I mean, you don't get that in a hotel. And Airbnb has really, truly made it feel like people around the world can belong anywhere. I found that a very profound statement. Nike, I was very fortunate to go to the Nike campus for an event a few years ago. And if anyone been to the Nike campus before? in Oregon. It's pretty incredible. The whole campus is sport, like the whole thing sport. Every one of us on the call right now, assuming we're all wearing pants, wearing like shorts and t-shirts, like everyone shows up to work in sport. And you don't just have a meeting in a boardroom. There's very few of those. It's like, okay, Kevin, you and I are going to go meet on the rock climbing wall. Let's go, rock climb. And they've got places to take notes as you're climbing up the rock climbing wall. They've got a big lake in the middle filled with a bunch of boats and Wi-Fi coverage across the whole place. Everything they do is sport. So it brings such inspiration and innovation to athletes in the world, because they've created a culture who is born into sport. Everything they do, they live, sleep, and breathe it from the inside out. IKEA, to create a better, they're Swedish, so pardon the language here, but to create a better everyday life for the many people. Unless you go on a Saturday, then it's hell. But for the most part, they really try to streamline their processes, and even their assembly instructions are making a better everyday life. And Disney, poor Disney right now, but they're all about creating happiness. We've been to Disney a lot of times before, and unless you go during March break, Disney has absolutely commercialized happiness. You just feel happy. People around there are happy. The music is happy. The staff are happy. It's just a really happy environment. And to create a finer point on it, there was an interesting out of Disney's brand purpose on the DisneyInstitute.com. There's a quick story about a marketing person who represented an ad agency going to figure out what the DNA of Disney was. So here was his excerpt. As he was preparing to pitch what would become the purpose of Disneyland to Walt and Roy Disney, Van Arsdale France once said, "My goal, as I saw it, was to get everyone we hired to share in an intangible dream and not just working for a paycheck." As he recounted the experience, here were all the top executives, all of them right here, and I had to get up and say, and now our theme, the purpose of Disneyland is to create happiness for others. And you see, the beautiful thing about saying we're going to create happiness was, then I could say, look, you may park cars, clean up the place, sweep the place, work graveyard and everything else, but whatever you do is contributing to happiness for others. That's a very powerful why that started from the inside out and has actually created such a long-lasting movement and of course profitability for the company. But that was I thought a very powerful insight. Okay, everyone heard of Peace by Chocolate? This is my final example, and then we'll move into how to uncover this. You've heard of Peace by Chocolate. Anyone not heard of Peace by Chocolate by now? Yeah. Profound story, and it's a story that I think has really resonated with Atlantic Canadians. Again, keep in mind, chocolate is very much a commodity, and yes, there's better chocolate than others that are out there for sure. But from a marketing perspective, they could just market how great their chocolate tastes or their manufacturing principles or practices. But they've chosen to create a brand which is actually much more powerful than the product that it represents. So I found an interesting video that I'm just going to play really quickly that I think encapsulates the why of them and of course, not surprisingly, why they're so successful.
Our story is all about the importance of peace. Without peace, there's no life. Because without peace, no one can go to work, no one can go to school, no one can build businesses, you cannot raise kids, you cannot do anything without peace. My name is Tere Kadar and I'm originally from Damascus. My father started the chocolate business in Syria in 1986. The company was growing very fast. One morning, I heard in the news that there are going to be some explosions and bombs in the area that the factory was. We lost everything, basically. We lost the factory, we lost the house. In a blink of an eye, our whole lives in Syria was destroyed. So we decided to leave the country. We started thinking about moving to a country that would give us the human rights, the freedom, and the opportunity to live again. That was absolutely Canada. Kenyans are very well known being nice. but Antigonish is extra nice. They came to the airport to welcome me, and they were carrying flowers and signs. They were saying, "Welcome to Canada, Tarek." Being welcomed this way really made me feel more confident to launch my life again here in Canada with my family. Building the chocolate business again was a big thing for us because the chocolate is our own way to be grateful for everyone here. That's exactly where we were inspired to call the company Peace by Chocolate. We are trying with every piece of chocolate to reflect something about the culture that we brought to Canada. That's the mission. When we went to the farmers market, we were very surprised. We saw a line of 200 people. They were waiting for us, and we were sold out in 15 minutes. All right, you are ready. That really gave us the first sense of pride of what we are making here in this country. Google Search is a great platform for us to find suppliers, vendors, and Google My Business drives almost 60 to 70% of the visitors to our storefront in Antigonish. Peace by Chocolate has shipped and produced millions of chocolate pieces across the country and across the world. We try to support local community by offering jobs and hiring from the local community. Peace by Chocolate now hires more than 35 employees. We are here to give back. I have done more than 400 speeches across the country. Hello, everyone. Hi. I really love people to realize the importance of small businesses in every community. Newcomers and immigrants, they are very motivated to translate their skills and experience. Without using Google, Peace by Chocolate would not have had this level of success. And bring the work together. Would you like to try a piece better? Thank you very much. This is also for you. Thank you. Enjoy. With a piece of chocolate, you can open a connection with everyone. I have 2 boxes of that at my college. Oh, really? That's awesome. It's about the people, about the hello that I receive every time I walk on the street with my family. Yeah, keep up the good work. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. My family feels safe. We are not refugees anymore. We are new Canadians. Antigonish is really the real meaning for home for me now. As a place, it's beautiful. With its people, it's courageous. I would say it's the most peaceful place on earth.
That's pretty powerful, right? I mean, that's it almost leaves you to wonder: are they selling chocolate or are they selling peace? But that connects with people, and if they were to try to market themselves any other way about their manufacturing techniques or how popular they were in Syria where they left, or what other value proposition that they would have created, I just don't know that it would have the same effect as the effect that they have right now on him connecting to a story through a product that he loves and wants to share. And I have no doubt that's the massive reason for their success. And their chocolate is great, yes, but there's even before you put the chocolate in your mouth, you've connected to the story and you're emotionally invested. So let's take the last few minutes and go over. I mean, that's all great, and I think one of the challenges that we have around us understanding that getting to your why. Hopefully, at this point, you've understand the importance of it, but getting to it is extremely hard, and it doesn't. In the video with Simon Sinek, go as far as to tell you how. So I want to spend a bit of time about how do we get to the core of you then, if that's the case. And keep in mind that, and I promised myself not to say anything about COVID, but given, we have some time on our hands right now, whether we like it or not, you have an opportunity right now to really dig into this. Whereas if the car was going 100 kilometers an hour, we always used to say, how do you change a car tire when the car is going 100 kilometers an hour? Because business is busy and people are busy, and trying to get them to stop and think about things was almost impossible until the last 2 months. You've actually got a moment where, as my friend Wayne Crawley would say, he's on the phone here now, don't waste a good crisis. I love that. There's an opportunity to align your people and get to the bottom of you without other shit getting in the way. So Jim Collins, if you've read the book or actually that was Jim Collins. Yeah, I think it was Jim Collins that had this trifecta, these overlapping concentric circles that help you get to the bottom of who you are. And in order to do that, the recommendation I would have is to start with filling out these 3 circles. So you start here in the top left-hand corner. What does the world need? And obviously that means as it relates to the business that you're in. So when you think about people who, need your product or service, what is it that they really need? And that's a deeper question. That's not just the timely, shipping of products and services and whatnot, because anyone can provide that. But what really keeps them up at night right now? What does your product or service solve for them? So, spend a good amount of time thinking about that. And then this is not, by the way, a 3-page document that answers this question. It's a sentence. How do you, boil down from all the things that the world needs, the one thing that they can't do without? So you start there. And then you move over to this circle, which is, what are you good at as a company? And by the way, this overlap, this section here is critically important, because if what you're good at delivering as a company today doesn't solve or overlap with what the world needs, you need to rethink your service delivery. You need to think your product mix. You need to rethink your business approach, because those two things have to overlap. That's why this piece in the middle is so critically important. In the case of CMP, what the world needs was access to safe and convenient processed food. And what CMP was good at didn't overlap. So we had to come up with, we have to be great at being hygienic design experts and building equipment that's going to keep people safe, but we weren't equipped for that. So when we had actually come up with what we were good at, it was more what we needed to be good at. And then we took 6 months to become great at it. We, designated hygienics design specialists. We sent them out on courses. We had thought leadership. We had created an engineering process that had hygienic design built in every step, so that the products that we built at the end of the day could live up to what we were actually good at. And then lastly, once you understand these two circles, then these two have to overlap, which is, what are you passionate about? As a business, what are you passionate about? What are the things that get you guys all excited when you get together as a group? And again, these two have to connect. So you can't be passionate about something that you're not good at. So in the case of CMP, once I explained to the company as a whole, we had about 100 staff, that keeping people safe. Think about your kids, think about your loved ones, and think about our role in keeping people safe, because these outbreaks happen, all the time, more than they should in food plants. And predominantly it's because of badly designed equipment or bad hygienic practices within the food processor. And we play a role in that. So, can we be passionate about it? And when I said, guys, could we keep people safe? How do you feel about that? We even went so far as to create cardboard cutouts at each of the workstations of family loved ones. So your constant reminder that that's why you're building. That's why you take the extra time to build equipment that, as opposed to 4 threads that stick out, it only has 2 threads that stick out, because there's less points of place for bacteria to grow and fester. And then of course this overlaps back in this big concentric circle. From what you're passionate about. So if you've answered what the world needs, and you've answered what are you good at or will you be good at, and you've answered what are you passionate about, what you're passionate about answers directly the brand purpose. That's the piece that is where the gold lives, because it answers all 3 of these circles. So understanding your brand purpose or your why comes out, in my opinion, of a really good job of uncovering those 3 circles. I do want to warn you that this is a really difficult process. I'm just seeing on the call, I know Mike MacArthur for sure, in another company I'm involved in, Jason, is about to go through this process. And I warn anyone that's about to go through it, this ain't easy. This takes weeks, possibly months to uncover and do the right job of. What I see most companies do is, at this point in time, they're excited about it. They're like, this is awesome. I'm going to go away those, geez, there's 3 questions there. How hard can this be? And then you invite other opinions in, and people have got conflicting opinions, and you start fighting. And gradually what I see happen mostly with companies is they're inspired at this moment, but then the pain hits and they're like, screw it, let's just go back to what we were doing before. And they miss the opportunity that's in front of them to be competitively very different and shape culture over it. So My warning to you is that this is not an easy process. If it was, everyone would do it. I think everyone that I've spoken to, I've rarely, and I've done this in front of hundreds of people, almost no one has come to the end of it going, this is bullshit, I don't see the value in it. Most people see the value in it, but not a lot of people have crossed the finish line, despite me of doing this, probably a couple of years now. The reason is that it's hard and it's challenging, and the answer is not obvious. It just doesn't sit there in flashing lights when you go through this process. So be prepared to invest in this for the right reasons for the long term, and the teams that you're going to assign to this, make sure that they're aware of that as well. So this slide, I think, is really important because it's kind of a sanity check when you get to the end of it. These questions are really important. So let's say you've gone through the process and you've uncovered your why and everyone's excited about it. And by the way, the goosebump test is really important. Do you have goosebumps at the end of it, and do other people as well? But that said, ask yourself at the end of the process these 5 questions. Is it truly different? Or have you cut corners and watered down the process so much that you're pretending like it's different, and when you actually go to promote this and make it institutional, it's actually not that different. So I think you have to answer the question, is it truly different? Is it believable? That's really important. Had CMP gone out on day one and said, hey, we're hygienic design experts, we keep food safe, and we were putting shitty equipment out there that was, tons of harborage points and didn't, pay any attention to that, any plant manager would go, this thing's a pain in the ass to clean. You've done more damage to your brand than you have good, because it's more important for you to be it than it is to say it. So can you deliver on it? Is it simple and clear? This should not be a complex message. Like all of those brand examples I gave you earlier, those were not hard to understand. You understood what they stood for, and they delivered on it time in and out. But complicating this process, the output should be very simple and clear. Does it excite you and your staff? I'll give you a little quick story. So when we had launched the We Keep Food Safe thing, our receptionist at CMP came to me and said, the Gold Cup and Saucer Parade is a big thing. The plant was in PEI. We had this idea because we created these mascots with these massive, big, burly knights that were like built with CGI defending a potato, this lowly, defenseless potato, and you have all this overkill. And that's kind of the representation of what CMP was assigned to We Keep Food Safe. So she came to me and said, hey, why don't we put in a float at the parade that has a bunch of people dressed up like knights defending a potato? Whether you like the idea or whether you don't, I love the fact that our people were owning this. They took ownership over it. They went home and they talked about it with their spouses. I had one guy, I'm not sure how safe this was, one guy bought a knight's helmet as opposed to a welding mask, and he was in a plant at McCain down. She sent me a picture in the bottom of a boiler room doing welding with a full stainless steel knight's mask. That I found was very profound. And then lastly, and most importantly, can you deliver on it? So this goes in hand in glove with, is it believable? But you have to be able to deliver on it. So if for example, Peace by Chocolate was, picking fist fights with everybody in Antigonish, getting drunked up and fighting people, I don't know if that brand proposition would stand as much as it does. He seems like a very peaceful guy. He seems to be it. And they as a company are continually delivering on it. I'm very sure that if I were to walk through their plant, which I've never done, you're going to find a collection of some of the nicest people, friendly people, helpful people that you've ever found in your life, because that's what that brand stands for and that's what they defend. So those 5 questions are critically important. And then of course, then lastly, you have to align your organization. It's not, back to the Staples example, if you've come up with this proposition, make sure that people have ownership in it. It's not just, showing up and driving it down their throat. People, I say infect your culture with it. If you do it right, they're going to come to you with ideas, good or bad, it doesn't matter. The fact is that they're thinking about it when you're going home. Staying true to it and then using it to guide your corporate decisions. So the workshop that I just talked about before was, answering those three circles, and then the last question to unlock the brand purpose. So the last slide I'll talk about right now is just how to implement it. So if you go through this process, here in my opinion is how you do it. You build a small brand project team consisting, and these aren't your leaders. These aren't people who are at the top of the food chain and the power players or the shareholders. build people, you build a team that's got people who are connected, the connectors of your company that have, they're good, you know, they're good thinkers, they love the company, and build a brand project team with that. Have each of them go away and answer the circle, depending on how big your circle is. I would suggest you don't make it any bigger than 4 or 5 people, but have people go away on their own to answer it, because stick them all in the room and say, let's group think this, it never works. So having people come to the table with answers to those 3 circles starts to, you know, starts to get to the purpose much easier than trying to do it as a group. You know, running the filters that I just talked about, getting key buy-in from staff and client visionaries. Include your clients in this process. You know, what keeps them up at night, and the ones who really care to see you succeed, invite them into your process. They're also going to feel some emotional ownership over that. Decide how it's going to affect every part of your culture. And then lastly, and I'm not doing this to promote advertising agencies, businesses, but sometimes it's good to have somebody who's done this before that can take you through it, and it removes the brain blocks. So if you need, and you know somebody who's good in marketing or who's just got a really good point of view, have them take you through this process. Might be a little easier than you trying to take yourselves through it. All right, so that's the, I'm going to stop the share here now. I see that there's been a few questions, and I don't want to run too far over here. So Harrison, you say here, I think, and by the way, if you have any other questions or things you want me to clarify, now's the time to chuck it in there. Let's see, I think as the space increases in competition, such as chocolate, the why is directly proportional in importance. I couldn't agree more. I think as the world gets more competitive, it's critically important to differentiate. Wayne says, an authentic story that matters to the entrepreneur always is the advantage. Getting that story out to the world is the next part of the magic. It's much less work than it is part of who you are. Knowing your why, then who with really matters. I know I've seen firsthand it's not easy to peel back, but I understand and really understand your why. So again, he's suggesting it's a difficult process, which it is. He says, again, have seen firsthand pushing a leader over and over on her why, but once he helped her get there, it changed everything. I think I know who you're talking about, Wayne. Beth, I'm sorry if it is if it's choppy. Probably the video piece was choppy. Yeah, okay, good. So if anyone has any kind of last big burning questions, feel free to unmute yourself, and because sometimes it takes longer to type something than it does to write it out. Does anyone have any big burning questions?
I do have a question.
Do, yes.
I read the book, or I watched the video, I read some of the book for Simon. I think the question is, do really people care about your why? If your product is good, they'll just use it. Like everybody hates Facebook, but they all use it. A lot of products, like people use just because it's good enough. So how important is the why for products that people need? That's the first question. The second one is, now most companies they need to pivot to stay relevant during this time. So how can you pivot and make sure you don't change your why? Because if you don't change your why, sometimes you will go out of market in this time. So what's your answer?
So I firmly believe that the why is critical with every business. I bet you that if Mark Zuckerberg were to grace us with his presence, he didn't start up Facebook because he thought there was millions of dollars to be had. He did it because he wanted to bring people together and share. And back then it was like a relationship thing. And it was before your time, Abdu, you're too young for this, but it was like are you single or you're not? And then you'd be able to, I can't remember, we used to send little emojis to each other. But the essence of why Facebook got created might not be market facing. But it's evident in their product, and it's evident in how they innovate. It's evident in how they stay up with consumer trends, and the importance of connectivity, and the importance of this being a staple in everyone's lives. So I would argue that, though, the same with Airbnb, the same with Nike, sometimes the best marketing messages aren't ones that you promote. It creates a movement from within that creates those great products that you're talking about. But if you don't have a why, how do you find like-minded people that are willing to build on your vision for that company? You know, how do you find the right supply chain if you're in supply and services that agree with you on the timeliness or the way your product is going to show up every day? I think understanding that is going to liberate, is the best word I can describe it. Liberates your idea, liberates your teams, and it creates you know, group think in the right direction. Everyone rows in the right direction. To your second point about pivoting, most of the businesses that I'm seeing pivot aren't moving from a product to a service. You know, they're pivoting, they're expanding their role to find things that are easier deliverables and that still solve a problem. But it's not like, if, for, you know, use you an example, that you're in the sports business, now you're pivoting into the fitness business. You're still in the activity business. You're still in keeping people moving business. So I don't know that the why is going to fundamentally change on the pivot, but it's definitely something you have to pay regard to. But most of the companies that I've seen pivot is not like a 90-degree turn. It's a 10% or a 15%, which I don't think will disrupt the why process. Terry, I see. My why. So, sorry, I'm going back up. Wayne says, what is my why? So the latest company that I created is called Seventh Wave Capital. And I took, after we sold CMP in January of 2019, which is good timing, I took 6 months off and I took a sabbatical. I just unplugged from the matrix. The two other companies I was a part of at the time, I just said, guys, I'm unplugging for 6 months. If you really need me, call me. But I need to figure, I just need to kind of reset, reflect, and rejuvenate when I come back. And one of the things that I thought long and hard of over those 6 months was, what does my potentially last chapter look like? I'm 48 years old now. If I have another 10 or 12 years ahead of me, what does that look like? And the one thing that I know to be true, because I deal with entrepreneurs almost all day, every day, is it's extremely lonely. And I think if any one of you were being really honest with me or others around you, being an entrepreneur is a very thankless, lonely, tough, perilous journey, filled with questions, filled with issues, and you can't be vulnerable to your team a lot of times because it shows a lack of leadership, or they start, you know, questioning everything as well. And then you can't be vulnerable to your family because, you know, they start freaking out and taking the stresses home there as well. So you just basically, you know, bite down and endure. And my thinking was that I've had, you know, the great blessing of being exposed to a lot of really smart people that I've been in business with before. And I thought, well, what if I could help entrepreneurs find the road? There's a path that exists for almost every company, that if you take it and you stick to it and you surround yourself with the right counsel and advisors, that you can cross the finish line and you could do extremely well by it. What if I built an advisory team that could create that? So, and my why came out of Seventh Wave. For those that don't know, Seventh Wave is the elusive wave that is the biggest in the set of a wave, that if you're a surfer or a sailor, you know that the seventh wave exists, in particular if you're a surfer. So you see the surfers out there waiting in the water, they're waiting for the seventh wave because they're trained, they understand where it is and how to catch it and then ride it into shore. And that became the essence of our company, is to take a minority stake in businesses and create an advisory board and make the entrepreneur's journey not so lonely. So that would be my why as it relates to that company. Terry says, mission and vision, is there a difference to the why, or can it be inclusive and defined by your vision and mission statement? I'll be really honest, I'm not a big vision mission guy at all. I think, personally speaking, I find they're companies that go through that process do it because every company has to do it. Do we have our vision and mission and value statement set up? And then they think about it, and then I remember going to visit a friend of mine in a company. He was all excited to show me his laminated vision and mission statement with the pillars underneath. And he's like, you know, we set them up at everyone's workstations, and we just really think that this is a really important thing we're doing for the company. I said, really? I said, how long ago did you launch this? He said, a month ago. So I turned to one of the employees and I flipped the card down and I said, what's on the card? And they're like, yeah, I have no idea. I'm like, no one gives a shit about that stuff. But people do care about your why. People can understand it because it's something bigger than what's written on a card. So if I stay away from vision and mission stuff unless it is coming directly out of your why and it's tangible and people can really embrace it.